With breaking news happening now, this is a Wave News Alert.
Your time is 5:58, and we're following that breaking news right here on Wave Sunrise. Indiana State Police are investigating an officer-involved shooting in Jeffersonville. Police say someone barricaded themselves inside of an apartment off of North Shore Drive and started firing at officers. And we know now that man is dead. Wave News reporter Josh Ninke is live on the scene right now. What have state police been able to tell us about what happened, Josh?
Yes, just, Kathleen, still a very active scene here behind me, and we just spoke with ISP just a little while ago. Basically, the big headline here, nobody else was hurt. I'm going to step out of the way, giving you a slightly different angle at what you can see here. And another thing to mention, this suspect who's dead did not start out as a suspect. This actually began as a 911 welfare or a welfare check for them. They were apparently saying some kind of odd, slightly disturbing things. A neighbor called police to have them come check him out, but that's when he barricaded himself inside the home. The ISP said he didn't believe that actual police officers were outside of his apartment. He spent a lot of time, hours, trying to talk and communicate with police officers. They didn't open fire immediately. It took hours and hours before this happened. In fact, here, let me tell you what ISP had to say about that actual moment that officers shot back at this suspect.
When the suspect pointed the weapon out the window another time, a third possibly time, Jeffersonville or regional SWAT team officer did fire and strike the subject. After some time trying to make contact with the suspect, they were unable to enter into the apartment to confirm right away with the drone. Eventually they were able to breach into the apartment and confirm that the suspect had been struck. He was confirmed dead at that time.
Now, we don't know much about this man, but let me tell you what we do know. They're not releasing his identity just yet, but as a man in his 50s or 60s, possibly from Louisville. They said he might have some family up in the Indianapolis area. Again, still waiting for more information on who this person is. Jeffersonville police did ask ISP to take over this investigation into what happened in this officer-involved shooting. Pretty standard procedure here, but that's how this all has played out. We'll, of course, have more information for you throughout the day and let you know what we know when we can. Live here in Jeffersonville, Josh Ninke, Wave News.
Thank you, Josh. We'll check back in. Certainly, we're continuing to follow this story throughout the morning. We'll also have the latest updates right here on air and online at wave3.com. You can check our Wave News app as well for any of those updates. Now we send things over to Tawana for an update on the weather. What can we expect outside today?
Some gorgeous weather is what we get to enjoy for today. Right now, seeing those clouds clearing, and that will allow for some fog trying to form across parts of Wave Country. Seeing some of that off towards our north and towards our east as well. Visibility dropping a little bit more towards E-Town, Bardstown, Springfield, Campbellsville, and even up towards Madison. But still, it is very patchy. It's very light. Not seeing any major issues with it right now. Your temperatures to start today mainly in the low to mid 60s. So we are cool. But for those of you in Adair County in Columbia, you're much cooler than everywhere else. Currently sitting at 57 degrees. Those clear skies that you saw overnight really helping your temperatures drop. So for those kids who are going to school today, for that bus ride in, just fine 50s and low 60s across the area. For lunchtime, we could be jumping to near 72 degrees at that point. And then for the ride home, we should be seeing upper 70s and low 80s. So overall for today, things are looking great for the school day. Now, as we head into next week, that summer heat really starts to ramp up across Wave Country with 90s in the forecast for several days. I'll let you know how long the heat wave looks to last in my full forecast.
Thanks, Tawana. JCPS Superintendent Marty Pollio in the hot seat for the first board meeting since last week's busing disaster. The board now has a couple of days left to sort this all out. The first group of students scheduled to go back on Friday. And Wave News reporter Olivia Russell is live at the Van Hoos Education Center with details from last night's meeting.
Kathleen, that room was packed at capacity last night with so many people wanting to be part of this meeting, whether it was to speak directly to the board or just hear what they had to say. But a lot of people there said they don't want an apology. They want action. They want to know that there's a firm plan in place to make sure they avoid the mess that happened last week. But Superintendent Dr. Marty Pollio still apologized, admitting that he didn't anticipate the problems that they saw this last week and they should have been addressed in the summer. Instead, they have 1 week to really fix things. things, but the board expressed how they wanted to move forward and even asked for an external audit of exactly what led to the busing disaster. Some board members took partial responsibility, but also said they were disappointed.
You know, one of the things that each of us has to do is ask ourselves, how did we contribute to this in some way? And I think it's clear as a board member that I did not do enough, you know, to ensure that JCPS administration invested the time and resources to adequately prepare for the momentous change that we were undertaking.
The district will get to try again on Friday when elementary and middle school kids go back to school. Then on Monday, high schools will reopen. But coming up in the next half hour, we'll talk about some of the things that they said went wrong and the partnerships they now have in place to hopefully fix things in the next couple of days. Reporting live at the Van Hoos Education Center, Olivia Russell, Wave News.
Interesting, Olivia. We and certainly all JCPS families looking forward, excuse me, to those answers. So we heard from the board. We also last night heard from JCPS parents. The meeting was open to the community, but not everybody could fit inside the Van Hoos Education Center. It was at full capacity. Some parents were saying at its core, the problem isn't really about busing. It's an equity issue. They told the board that if all schools in all areas offered the same quality of education, students wouldn't have to be bused across town. Another mom was also upset about the conditions for students who were stuck at the busing compound.
The busing isn't working. It hasn't worked since 2017. It didn't work this past week. It was an epic failure. My son, he has a cell phone, so thanks God I was able to communicate with him. I knew he was at the bus compound. I knew he was safe. But when he got home, he said there was no food, they didn't offer him water, and he was really, really upset.
Other parents who spoke up wanted to know why the superintendent turned down a meeting with bus drivers who had wanted to voice their concerns. That question wasn't directly addressed by the superintendent or by the school board. The superintendent says parents will be able to track their children's bus on an app soon. It's a system that other Wave Country school districts already have. JCPS says they're working with T-Mobile and EDU Log to get this bus tracking app up and running. Greater Clark County Schools says it took them 6 months to get the system in all of its buses. But once it's in, it updates in real time. The idea is to give families a better idea of the route that their kid's bus takes.
That's somebody's world that's riding on that bus. We take that very seriously, so we want our parents to know what's going on. We want them to know where we're at.
The tracking system also has video feeds from each bus, and that's helped transportation staff reroute drivers who may have to avoid construction or maybe they run into another traffic problem. GCCS parents say you only need to download that Ride 360 app to your smartphone. You make an account, add your kid to your profile. JCPS has not said when GPS tracking will be made available for JCPS students. Checking in on those other school districts in our area, in southern Indiana specifically, officials in Floyd, Clark, and Harrison County say bus rides, for the most part, have gone smoothly this year. Silver Creek's transportation director says kids are usually on the bus at the end of the day for no more than 50 minutes. At Silver Creek, she says they don't use any kind of software to plan their routes because Silver Creek is just growing too fast, she says. So Friday will be take two for the JCPS transportation plan. Bus drivers have been working their routes. You've seen them driving around, and they've also been trying to make them more efficient because some say they've even had more stops added. This year, JCPS bus driver Cameron Brown right there, he went from 3 schools to 9 schools on his route. We found him while he was out practicing, and we learned he's driving from Preston Highway to Dixie Highway to the West End. Brown says the AI system the district used to come up with these routes didn't account for some traffic patterns or even explain where to turn. Now Brown is left trying to make his own ways to make the route more efficient with all those added stops. He, like many bus drivers we've spoken to, says they feel like the district should have talked to the drivers about these possible issues.
I've seen so many kids, and it's hectic, man, and it's just like, okay, that person, oh, so you're just all over the place. It's not, I don't feel like it was structured properly, or at least nobody talked to us personally about it before they made the decision to do what they did.
The district also plans to add another adult, someone to back up the driver to these buses that have a lot of stops. That person would act as a navigator and a communicator. Unlike the bus driver at the wheel, this person would be able to call the bus compound and let them know about delays. As students are stuck home, JCPS is working to make sure they can still get a school-funded meal. Meal sites are open across Louisville to help feed those kids through tomorrow. 11 to 12:30, a student can get a lunch and a snack bag to take home from any of those sites. We've got a full list of them at wave3.com. Our coverage will continue this morning. Ahead in our half hour, we have reaction from the governor on whether a special session should be called in the wake of these JCPS issues. We have all of our current coverage at wave3.com and on the Wave News app. In other news this morning, a man is dead after a shooting in Louisville's Russell neighborhood. It happened at the intersection of 26th and Market near the Boost Mobile store. It was just about 10 o'clock last night. The victim was taken to the hospital but died there. Right now, no arrests have been made. And new on Sunrise, we now know the funeral information for the Carroll County teenager who was shot and killed over the weekend. 16-year-old Bryce Stewart was killed early Sunday morning. In his obituary, it says he was greatly involved in many high school groups, including FFA and the football team. Says he had a great sense of humor and was a friend to everyone. Visitation will be today at 4 at Family Worship Center in Carrollton. Then the funeral is tomorrow afternoon at Corn Creek Baptist Church. Members of the football team will be there participating in the ceremony. An arrest report has revealed more about the suspect, the man police say pulled the trigger and killed that 16-year-old. Records show 40-year-old Timothy Stone admitting to having 10 beers and a shot that night. He admitted to then pointing a rifle at 16-year-old Bryce and pulling the trigger, hitting Bryce in the chest. He died from his injuries. Now Stone is charged with second-degree manslaughter. He's expected in court tomorrow. And a bicyclist is dead in Linden after being hit by 2 cars while riding his bike. Police say it happened at the intersection of LaGrange Road and Bluevale yesterday. The drivers of both cars stayed there at the scene, cooperated. There's no intoxication suspected. It was at 7:20 in the morning. Police are still trying to figure out then why this crash happened. So far, no charges have been announced, and we haven't heard that there will be any. An Indiana State Board has permanently revoked the license for that Jeffersonville funeral home director who was found to have 31 decomposing bodies at his funeral home. Investigators found those decomposing bodies and unmarked cremated remains in Randy Langford's funeral home last year. Langford was sentenced to 12 years. That'll be split between prison and home incarceration. He took a plea deal for the more than 40 felonies he was charged with. Several civil cases, though, against Langford remain open from angry, upset families. An update to a story from yesterday. A man is in jail after police say he burglarized several businesses around Louisville. Here's the guy they were looking for and found. LMPD says Terry Sams burglarized a McDonald's on Preston Highway Sunday. These are from that burglary. He was also charged with one at an Applebee's on Dixie Highway and a burglary at 7th Street Auto. In that case, police say security video caught Sams stealing a car and then driving it through the bay door at the auto shop. Sams is expected in court this morning. Tawana's looking at the next 12 hours.
And over the next 12, some beautiful weather coming our way. Plenty of sunshine, a few extra clouds later on this afternoon. Highs near 80 degrees, low humidity in the forecast. So overall, looking gorgeous for today. Now, taking a peek at the roads right now, most of us A-okay, but we are seeing some issues on the Snyder. This is going to be northbound as you're trying to get towards 64. Things a little bit slow as everyone's trying to get on to 64. So keep that in mind. We usually see some delays in this area, but thankfully no crashes showing up right now. Kathleen.
Thanks, Tawana. We're taking a live picture right now. ISP is investigating an officer-involved shooting in Jeffersonville. We are live with more information just ahead on Sunrise.
This is Wave News Sunrise.
Kentucky health officials are reminding parents to make sure those kiddos are up to date on their shots, all of them, because a student tested positive for whooping cough. Ouch. The Woodford County Health Department says they detected the case just as students were headed back to school. They say the contagious disease spreads by that cough, or rather by the droplets that come with it. It can spread really easily in schools, especially if there are kids there that are unvaccinated. Symptoms include congestion, runny nose, fever, fever and a cough, but not a regular cough. It is a really, really terrible cough. If you do get vaccinated at the Kentucky State Fair, here's a great perk. You can get a free unlimited ride wristband just for getting those shots. The Kentucky Association of Health will have vaccines available for flu, measles, mumps, rubella. Their booth is in the South Wing B. The unlimited ride wristbands are only available while supplies last, so get there early. The fair starts on Thursday. Sending things to meteorologist Tawana Andrew. I would happily get a little bitty shot for unlimited rides at the fair, especially on some of these beautiful days coming up.
That means you get to hang out close to the food the entire time as well. So
sounds like a dream.
This is why I'm excited for Wave News Day at the fair next week. Remember, that is going to be next Tuesday for those of you heading out. Now, what we're seeing right now, high pressure off towards our west. That means more of a northerly flow, which is going to help to keep things cool and comfortable for today. We did have a band of clouds sitting over us overnight, but those have since broken apart. And with the clearing skies, we're seeing temperatures dropping a little bit more, and we're watching for some areas of fog. Our SkyTrack camera shows that we're starting to see the first bits of sunlight off into the distance as we're looking from Jeffersonville towards the east. So already calm and gorgeous for today, but something we have to watch, some of that patchy light fog showing up across portions of Kentucky from Madison down towards Springfield over towards Fort Knox, seeing some of that slightly lower visibility showing up right now on our maps, but thankfully nothing is dense this morning, and that's certainly some good news. We're also seeing at the same time some of that drier, less humid air making its way into wave country, so seeing a lot of that green on your screen right now, so where we could see a little bit more of that fog. So basically from parts of Breckinridge County all the way up towards Madison and Carrollton, that is where we have a little bit more of that moisture right now, and that is where we see some of that fog. But for those of you in blue, yeah, you're talking about just a beautiful morning with some of that lower humidity. Temperatures mainly in the low 60s for right now. Those clearing skies really helping our temperatures drop just a bit more before the sun comes up. Once we get into the afternoon, it's all about the sunshine. Temperatures warming into the upper 70s and low 80s. Keep in mind, we're usually at 90 for a high this time of the year, so this is well below average for today. And for tonight, we're going to drop down into the 50s and low 60s yet again across wave country. Now let's look at the rest of your 10-day, because tomorrow we have a pretty big day. It's the first day of the Kentucky State Fair, and we're going to be seeing those temperatures in the low to mid 80s for your highs. The wind gusting out of the southwest near 20 to 25 miles per hour. So you're going to keep that in mind as you're heading out there. But that breeze just going to make it feel even more fabulous for tomorrow. We're going to keep an eye on the front, dipping down into the area once we get into your Thursday night, bringing a few isolated downpours. But what we'll also do is drop our highs just a tad on your Friday, low 80s then, and then we jump to near 93 on your Sunday, so the heat starts to ramp up over the weekend, and it stays with us through most of next week. That is until another system moves in for next Thursday, bringing a few more rounds of rain to the forecast and dropping our highs into the 80s. We'll have a lot more of sunrise after the break.
Here's a look at the current Kentucky Lottery jackpots. The Kentucky Lottery, over $4.8 billion in grants and scholarships.
With no classes still for JCPS, some students have found it pretty tough to find childcare or even just fill up those free days for the kids. JCPS parents tell us they feel really fortunate to have had access to a lot of free events during these closures, like Glowworm Play Cafe in the Highlands. They hosted a day of free play sessions for JCPS families. State Senator Cassie Chambers Armstrong and Representative Josie Raymond helped sponsor the event. Jessica Hine brought her 2 kids. She says her oldest son had a great first day of school, and then the next morning she sat in that carpool line until she checked her email, realizing school had been canceled. Hine explained how this unexpected free time has felt for her as a new JCPS mother.
I'm definitely very hopeful that they will go back on Friday in the short term, and in the long term, I guess I hope that I will be convinced that the students are their first priority, because this is kind of leaving me to wonder about that.
Haim says she feels pretty fortunate that she's a stay-at-home mom, so she didn't have to scramble for childcare. She also says her son does feel a little left out that he hasn't started school, and so many other districts have. Other businesses and organizations in Louisville have been hosting events to support families, too. Like the Louisville Slugger Museum, they offered 2 free student admissions per ticket. Southeast YMCA, they had childcare where students could do crafts, swim, and make friends. The zoo has been offering those discounted admission since the first day JCPS called out for school. So the community absolutely stepping up to WANA, and they haven't had terrible weather in which to do things like the zoo or maybe go visit Louisville parks.
Yeah, my neighbors have been taking care of their grandkids, and it's been so fun to just watch them running around outside. That lightsabers yesterday, I was a little jealous.
So fun.
I wanted to join in. For those of you heading out today, we're talking about highs near 80, plenty of sunshine, lower humidity in the forecast. Tomorrow, mid-80s across the area. A front moves through for Thursday night into early Friday. This will bring some cooler air in just for Friday, and then we'll warm right back up as we head into the weekend. Upper 80s on Saturday, low 90s on Sunday, and then we're just going to bounce around the 90s for most of next week before we have yet another system moving through Thursday, bringing a slight chance of rain, and then the cooler air for the end of next week. But overall, in terms of rain chances over the next 10 days, not really seeing a lot, so keep that in mind.
All right, turn on those sprinklers. We are still waiting on an identification for a man who died in a motorcycle crash on Bardstown Road. Police say it happened when an SUV was pulling out onto Bardstown near Wildwood Country Club about 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon. And that van hit the motorcycle. The man on the motorcycle died right there at the scene. His name hasn't been released. The driver of the SUV stayed at the scene and was also taken to the hospital to be treated for their injuries, too. We now know the name of the man shot and killed in southern Jefferson County last week. The coroner's office says the victim is 22-year-old Zonte Holbrook. This happened on Pyramid Road Friday. No arrests have been made. A Shelby County man is in jail after police say he was sending inappropriate messages to a minor. Stephen Williams is charged with attempting to promote a minor under 16 into sexual performance. Also, conspiracy to promote the use of a minor by electronic means and tampering with evidence. The arrest came after a monitor of an online chat site let police know about these messages. Williams admitted to sending the messages and admitted to knowing the child was just 11 years old. Coming up, a man is dead after an officer-involved shooting in Jeffersonville. Police say someone barricaded themselves in an apartment and started shooting at police. Wave News reporter Josh Ninke is on the scene. He'll have the latest information just ahead on Sunrise.
With breaking news happening now, this is a Wave News Alert.
Good morning. Your time is 6:30 on the dot, and we are continuing to follow a breaking Wave News Alert here on Sunrise. Indiana State Police are on scene investigating an officer-involved shooting in Jeffersonville. It comes after police say someone barricaded themselves inside of an apartment off North Shore Drive and then started shooting at authorities. We now know that man is dead. Wave News reporter Josh Ninke has been live on that scene for a couple hours now. What's the latest from Indiana State Police about what they've been able to determine, Josh?
Yes, Kathleen, this scene is actually, we've seen several of the ISP officers leaving the area. It seems like things have calmed down a little bit. Admittedly, this thing started at 9:30 last night, wrapped up closer to midnight. Now, we do know that the man in question here, that suspect, was a man in his 50s or 60s. They said he might be from the Louisville area. We're still waiting for confirmation on that. They're not releasing their identity just yet. I'm going to step out of the way so we're going to get and take a closer look here at the scene. Like I said, 9:30 started out as a welfare call from another resident, and that's when officers came out here and were knocking on the door of this man, and that's when he apparently didn't believe that they were in fact officers. He threatened them at some point, saying that he had a gun. That's when officers stepped back, and a short time later, probably around 11:10, was when the first rounds were fired. They say that the suspect shot out of the window towards police officers. They called in a regional SWAT team who set up in the area. Several more shots fired by the suspect, allegedly, and after the third round of shots fired, that's when SWAT actually fired back and took him out. And this is what ISP had to say about what happened in that moment.
Immediately after that, the apartment building was cleared to make sure that there were no injuries. Nobody else in this incident was struck. There were no any injuries whatsoever, other than the suspect being struck by the SWAT team member. So it could have been much worse. Multiple rounds were fired from within the apartment. Indiana State Police detectives were called on scene, are still in the middle of the investigation. Our crime scene technicians are on scene. It's going to be a long time before we have all the information.
There's obviously still a lot for us to learn here. Jeffersonville Police did request ISP to take over this investigation. Standard procedure here for something like this. Now, they as you see, still a bit of a scene here behind me. Jeffersonville Police had a shelter-in-place order issued last night, but they did lift that. But at the last check, they are still asking for folks to avoid this area if you can. I know this could be a potentially busy area for some people as they're getting ready to go on that morning commute here. Again, Avia Apartments here, real close to 2nd Street Bridge and whatnot. So we'll keep you updated as the day keeps going and as we continue to learn more about what happened here and what's going to happen next. Live here in Jeffersonville, Josh Ninke, Wave News.
ISP said it themselves. A lot of questions remain unanswered. Thanks, Josh. We are continuing to follow this story throughout the morning. We'll have the latest updates right here on air on Wave. Also online, wave3.com. Also download that Wave News app. We have those updates there. We'll send you a push notification if anything really big breaks. Now sending things over to meteorologist Tawana Andrew for what we can expect outside today.
You can expect to see me outside today because the weather is just going to be so fabulous across the area as we continue throughout your Wednesday. So what we're dealing with right now, temperatures mainly in the low 60s in most spots. A couple of exceptions to that. 57 in Seymour and into Columbia, 59 right now for those of you in Campbellsville, and 67, a little bit warmer at the airport in Louisville. So while temperatures are relatively comfortable this morning, we're going to be talking about all of that sunshine across the area for today. Temperatures jumping to near 80 degrees for a high, so overall a lot cooler than what we typically see in the summertime. And behind me, a beautiful sunrise taking shape. So a gorgeous start to the day, that is for sure. Now, as we head over the next couple of days, here's what we're going to be looking at. Yes, we're cool today. We're going to try to bump up into the mid-80s tomorrow, back down into the low 80s on Friday, and then we just start riding that roller coaster all the way up as we head into next week. I'll let you know when we're going to see that steep drop, and hopefully no one starts screaming in just a bit.
Yeah, hopefully the only screams come from the rides at the Kentucky State Fair, Tawana.
Exactly.
JCPS taking a full week to address the transportation disaster. Last Wednesday, on the first day of school, the last student dropped off was at nearly 10 p.m. that night. Wave News reporter Olivia Russell is live at the Van Hoos Education Center with the plans the boards discussed at last night's meeting. Olivia.
Kathleen, the board said it's a system that is stretched too thin with long, inaccurate routes. Plus, on top of that, they had the bus driver shortage that already existed before that, but was made even worse for this year. All that led up to what happened last week. But JCPS still working to come up with a solution here. They're partnering with different companies, not doing this alone. So first, they're working with Alpha Route. That's the company that helped come up with the routes this year using AI. Then UPS is also stepping in to help because we know that they know these roads really well. And T-Mobile is also looking at ways for families and schools to track buses in real time and for navigation support services. Superintendent Dr. Marty Polio said they're even getting feedback from those behind the wheel.
I had meetings with bus drivers on Friday. I'm meeting with bus drivers again tomorrow. We're meeting with school leaders, compounds leads, and I will continue to have these regular meetings so we can get feedback from them. Quite candidly, we should have taken the bus driver feedback when they first got their routes.
And after he said that, a crowd just erupted with applause, agreeing that they should have taken driver feedback a while ago. But the board also shared some of the responsibility for the busing disaster and also asked for an external audit of exactly what led up to it. But JCPS still has a couple days to finalize the plan. Elementary and middle school students will go back to school on Friday, and high schoolers will go back on Monday. Live at the Van Hoos Education Center, Olivia Russell, Wave News.
In just about 48 hours, kids getting back on those JCPS buses. Thanks, Olivia. Governor Beshear, meanwhile, does not plan to call a special session to address the issues at JCPS. The Kentucky House Republican Caucus, you might remember, they released a letter last week asking the governor to do exactly that, call legislators into session. They specifically want to investigate breaking apart JCPS and possibly adding more charter schools to the mix. The governor's office sent us this statement, quote, "A special session is an extraordinary step that costs significant tax dollars and should only be taken after full consensus is reached and legislation has been drafted and agreed upon. Thus far, no legislator has contacted the governor's office directly about this. Attorney General Daniel Cameron laid out his plan to improve Kentucky's education system if he's elected governor in November. Cameron's plan includes offering tutoring to students after school and over the summer for 16 weeks. He says also restoring discipline in the classroom by giving teachers tools to remove disruptions and increasing starting salary for teachers. Cameron says his plan would cost about $100 million.
Kentucky has been ranked one of the worst in the nation for overall return on our educational investment. Now, this is certainly not the fault of our teachers. This is the fault of government and bureaucracy under which they labor. We must reduce administrative bloat and bring relief.
Statewide test scores last fall showed fewer than half of Kentucky students were reading at their grade level. Cameron didn't say how he would fund that $100 million education plan. In a statement about the plan, Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman responded saying, quote, the plan he rolled out does not offer raises to teachers that are in the classroom today, and it's not fooling anybody. Governor Beshear will outline his education budget proposal this morning at 9:30. We'll break it all down for you today on Wave News. A new incoming class of freshmen are set to begin their college experience at UK. Classes start on Monday. Takes you back, doesn't it? University officials say campus safety is really their top priority this year. In the last decade alone, UK has invested more than $15 million to safety initiatives, they say, including a robust security system all across campus.
We have 64 plus blue phones around campus that allow us to have cameras as well as loudspeaker warning system. And in the case of emergency, somebody can push that button and they contact UK police.
Of course, it's not just in Lexington. U of L students return to campus on Thursday, tomorrow. That's the first move-in day. Faculty, staff, and community volunteers will help students bring their belongings to the residence halls and, if they're lucky, cart them up all those stairs. Classes at U of L start on Monday. Metro Parks leaders are still trying to figure out how exactly to renovate the pool in Algonquin Park. The pool was built in the 1960s, and it's doing so poorly it didn't even open this year. The city has $9 million to split between improvements at the Algonquin pool and a pool at Camp Taylor. Metro Park leaders say this renovation will bring the Algonquin Park pool into the 21st century.
It was built in the 60s. It's basically a hole in the ground that you can come splash and swim. That's about it. In today's pools, today's amenities, there's spray features, basketball, climbing walls, slides, a whole lot of things that are available today that just weren't available back in 1960.
The last public meeting about pool renovations, the last time to have your voice heard, is tomorrow at the Park Hill Community Center. We have those details online. The Indiana Department of Transportation wants federal money to improve I-64, and a lot of it. Our partners at the News and Tribune report the department's asking for about $100 million in federal funds. The project would include adding new lanes on 64 and 265 and reconfiguring that interchange. State leaders say it'll minimize congestion in the area. We can only hope. INDOT expects to begin construction late next year, maybe early 2025. Tawana's got a look at the weather on the roads over the next 12 hours.
Yeah, and for today, it's going to be beautiful. We're starting off with 50s and low 60s, so maybe grab that light jacket as we get into the afternoon. Highs near 80 degrees, plenty of sunshine throughout the day today. Now, looking at our roads, what we're seeing right now, things are quiet in most spots, but there is a crash showing up. According to KYTC, this is going to be right past Taylorsville Road as you're heading northbound on the Snyders, so keep that in mind. That TriMark camera has been spinning trying to find the crash. Right now it's focused on the sunrise, so we'll keep an eye on that and anything else that may pop up throughout the morning.
This has gone viral here locally. You see this, Jack Harlow made a big financial contribution to Louisville's performance scene, the ballet specifically. In an Instagram post, he announced a $50,000 donation to the Louisville Ballet. Harlow said the company is one of the most prestigious ballet companies in the country. He wants to support that. The rapper visited the ballet to find out how he could help them recover from the pandemic. And I imagine they said, hey, $50,000 would be a big help. Harlow also encourages everyone else in the community to donate as much as they can as well. Introducing the honey pepper pimento chicken sandwich. Chick-fil-A says this new sandwich has that original Chick-fil-A filet topped with creamy pimento cheese. Yum. Little pickled jalapeno for spice. It's served on a warm toasted bun drizzled with sweet honey. Who's hungry? The honey pepper pimento chicken sandwich rolls out at Chick-fil-A's nationwide starting not this coming Monday, but Monday, August 28th. So we have about a week and a half to build up our appetites. I'm going to say 3 or 4 might do it for me.
Of the sandwiches?
Of the sandwiches.
No, that's good. That's a good amount.
Does that sound good? Maybe 5 or 6 for you. You know, no judgment
listen,
here.
I'm a hungry person. But the next question I have, can you switch out that patty for their spicy one?
Ooh, you want a little extra kick?
Yeah.
Our producer just told us yes.
Give me the heat. I want it. But yeah, that looks so good right now. And then the milkshake to go along with it. Okay, now that we have lunch plans, we're keeping an eye on some beautiful weather across the area right now with a little bit more of that fog trying to develop across parts of wave country. So we'll talk about that and the heat wave coming our way in just 30 seconds. Good morning, everyone. We're still talking about Chick-fil-A right now. What we're seeing across the area right now, high pressure in control of our weather. It's off towards our west. So what we're going to see is the air wrapping around it, coming into our region from the north, helping to keep things cooler and less humid. The clouds that we had overnight, those are breaking apart, allowing for a gorgeous sunrise. So we're starting to see that first bit of light further over the horizon as we look from Jeffersonville towards the east from our SkyTrack camera there. So things are quiet and calm this morning weather-wise, but we are keeping an eye on the areas of fog. As expected, as we saw those clouds clearing, started to see some more of that fog developing. And for most spots, it is light and it is patchy, but I've been keeping an eye on the cameras. And for some of you in Franklin County, you know, as you travel over those rivers, those bridges, that is where you're running into that more dense fog, and that is why some visibility is down to a quarter mile in portions of Franklin County. So keep that in mind as you're traveling near area rivers, so especially near the Kentucky River, the Salt River, the Green River this morning. This is where you can run into that fog being a little bit more dense. But for most of us, we are seeing that lower humidity, that more pleasant air, that blue on your screen, slowly making its way into our region, and that is going to make for a beautiful day overall. Most of us are sitting in the upper 50s and low 60s right now. Warmer at the airport, currently at 67 degrees there. Over the next 12 hours, we'll watch those temperatures going from those 50s and 60s into the upper 70s and the low 80s. So overall, we're going to gradually warm up as your Wednesday goes along. Then for tonight, keeping our skies clear, falling down into the 50s and low 60s. So overall, today and tonight looking marvelous. Getting into tomorrow, 80s, mid-80s for your highs, and that's going to be great for the Kentucky State Fair as it begins tomorrow. Not worried about any rain tomorrow, and not even talking about a lot of heat. It will be a bit breezy for your Thursday with some wind gusts near 25 miles per hour. And while most of the day is going to be quiet, we'll see that potential for a few isolated showers once we get into your Thursday evening and Thursday night, courtesy of a cold front moving through. Now, this front is going to bring some slightly cooler air back into the forecast on Friday. Highs into the upper 70s and low 80s then. And here is the rest of your 10-day. Low 90s showing up on Sunday. So if you have any outdoor plans, just keep that heat in mind. And we'll see more of those 90s through most of next week. So that heat wave does last from Sunday through Thursday of next week. But another front moving through on Thursday will bring some more of that cooler air and a little bit of rain into the forecast. But overall, the next 10 days looking pretty dry across wave country.
Pretty dry, but quite a range of highs across those 10 days, Tawana. All right, foster care review boards across Kentucky are in desperate need of volunteers right now to help review cases of local children in foster care and make recommendations. There is a need in more than half of Kentucky's counties, that number being 67. In 1982, the General Assembly formed the review board to reduce the amount of time that kids spend in out-of-home care. Stephanie Solner, the Region 8 representative for the Foster Care Review Board, said one way you can help is to volunteer like this.
By having a full slate of volunteers, we get the right questions to really find out what's going on in the lives of these kids in order to make the fullest recommendation to the judge.
The other way to get involved is by becoming an advocate with CASA. CASA represents 7 counties around central Kentucky. They actually meet directly with the child who may have been abused or neglected and also interview people in their lives, really be an advocate for that kid at these hard moments in their lives. A man is dead after an officer-involved shooting in Jeffersonville. This happened overnight. We are learning more by the minute. Josh Ninke will be live with the latest details next. Your time is 6:52, and we're continuing to follow a breaking Wave News alert here on Sunrise. Indiana State Police are investigating an officer-involved shooting in Jeffersonville. Police say it started when someone barricaded themselves inside of an apartment off North Shore Drive and then started firing at officers. We know now that a man is dead. Wave News reporter Josh Ninke has been live at that scene for hours. What's the latest, Josh?
Kathleen, the officers are continuing to investigate here. This whole thing wrapped up probably around midnight or so last night, or this morning, I should say. But the investigation just getting underway. Now, like I said, things started around 9:30 with that initial welfare call from a neighbor because they were worried about this person who ended up being a suspect in this and is now dead. Just step out of the way so you can take a little bit of a closer look here. But that man barricaded himself inside the home. We know he's about in 50s or 60s. Something else that I haven't mentioned yet is that we're not really sure, or he hasn't really had any recent interactions with police. Officers are still investigating that, but they're not really, at this point, that's what we know. Now, after about, firing about 3 different times outside of his window at police officers, that's when the regional SWAT team was in, and they fired and killed that man. Now, they did say that they saw him with multiple guns inside the apartment, so that's part of the danger, obviously. Nobody else was hurt, though. That is the good news here. Nobody else hurt. There were shots fired through several of the other apartment walls, so someone could have been very seriously injured in this, so thankful at least for that. Indiana State Police investigating at the request of Jeffersonville Police Standard Procedure. Live here in Jeffersonville, Josh Ninke, Wave News. Olivia?
I'm Olivia Russell, live at the Van Hoos Education Center, where last night JCPL had their first board meeting since last week's busing disaster on the first day of school. The room was packed at capacity with parents who wanted to be involved in this meeting, and JCPS still looking for solutions in this. A lot of people didn't want an apology. They want those answers. They want to know that there's a firm plan moving forward. Dr. Polio told them he was sorry, admitting that he didn't anticipate these kind of problems and they should have been addressed during the summer. The board expressed how they wanted to move forward and fix things, and even asked for an external audit of exactly what led to the busing disaster. Some of the board members took partial responsibility, but also said they were disappointed. The district will try again on Friday when elementary and middle school kids go back to school. Then on Monday, high schoolers will head back to class. Reporting live at the Van Hoos Education Center, Olivia Russell, Wave News.
Olivia, thank you. And for those kids who are off school, what we have is a look at where they can go get those free school-funded meals still. Meal sites are open across Louisville to help feed students through tomorrow. 11 to 12:30, student can go to those locations. They can get a lunch and they'll get a snack bag to take home. We have a full list of where to go at wave3.com. Sending things to Tawana for a last look at today's weather and a traffic situation developing.
Yeah, we're still keeping an eye on what's happening on the Snyder. So this is going to be on the Snyder northbound as you're trying to get past Taylorsville Road. That is where we have the left lane blocked due to that crash in that area. We've been seeing some delays since earlier this morning, and now confirmation that there is a crash. No word on if any injuries are involved, and we'll work to get more information for you as the morning continues. This is the beginnings of our sunrise that is going to start, well, has already started, but that haze, those clouds in the distance, keeping us from actually seeing it. We are continuing to keep an eye on some areas of patchy fog, especially towards Franklin County. So for those of you in Frankfort or traveling to or from Frankfort, giving you a heads up there over the next 12 hours. Jumping into the upper 70s to near 80 degrees for a high. Plenty of sunshine, low humidity for today. We'll see a front moving through for tomorrow night, but only an isolated rain chance showing up there. And then we'll just ramp up the heat as we head into next week. So enjoy this right now, because we'll be sweating like crazy as we head into next week. Or glistening, not sweating, glistening.
Glistening, absolutely. And we'll need to let our lawns glisten a little bit. We'll have to give them the water over these next few days.
Exactly. Not much rain showing up over the next 10 days.
All right. Thanks for joining us here on Wave News Sunrise. The Today Show is next.
Get live streaming news, 24-hour weather, investigations, podcasts, and more. All for free with Wave Now. Watch on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and the Wave News app.